Today we're riding the CFMOTO 450 NK. It's not quite a middleweight twin, but more of a bantamweight twin that promises premium features, a thumpy 270-degree crank engine, along with premium looks and feel. Near the end of this video, our goal is to come up with a conclusion that tells you, the viewer, whether or not this motorcycle is worth your dime and you should call it a good buy. Or if instead you should look the other way and stick with the more well-known brands and say goodbye. We're going to accomplish this by taking a full comprehensive look at the CFMOTO and covering these topics. First off, how did CFMOTO get to this point and how do we end up with this motorcycle? We'll then burn through the facts and talk about the specifications on the machine. We'll also do a full feature highlight, kind of walking around and pointing some odds and ends out on the machine that set it apart from the rest of the competitors in this class. I'm also going to let you listen to how this motorcycle sounds, and we're in luck today because this has an aftermarket exhaust on it, so we'll really get to appreciate the thump of that 270-degree firing interval. And what's a motorcycle review without actually riding said motorcycle that we're reviewing? I'll make sure to take you guys out for a first-person perspective, taking you through its low-speed abilities, highway capability, around-town manners, 0 to 60 testing, and maybe some other things along the way. And by the time we're through with all of that good stuff, we'll hopefully have enough info to make a decision and come to a conclusion. CFMOTO as a company has been interesting to watch, not just because their bikes are getting sharper and faster and performing better in the market, but because they've also had to fend off a lot of cynicism and skeptics along the way. There's been a chorus of critics singing that Chinese bikes simply just cannot measure up to Japanese and European products in the motorcycle world today. But what's so interesting is this skepticism is something that we've seen before in the US market. Rewind back to the mid-1900s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki were Japanese products that were inferior and couldn't compete with the American motorcycle landscape. Many looked down on them and just referred to them as cheap imports. But fast forward a few decades, and we see Japanese motorcycles have now redefined what it means to be reliable and have great performance and excellent value. And now, Japanese branded motorcycles sit at the core of the exact motorcycling world that they were dismissed from all those years ago. CFMOTO is trying to walk a similar path. Yes, they started mostly as value, but they didn't have any intentions of staying there. And they've used some clever tactics employed by automotive manufacturers like Kia, Hyundai, who were Korean brands that were very foreign to US consumers. But because they came out with a bunch of great standard features, bold warranties, and continuous steady improvements, they've now positioned themselves as leaders and not afterthoughts just because of all the extra fanfare. CFMOTO appears to be doing the same kind of repositioning with their machines, focusing not so much on the value, but the performance side of things now. Though they started with the off-road vehicles, they slowly trickled in these two-wheel machines, and the first few iterations were okay. They've even discontinued some models because they just didn't sell in the US because they couldn't measure up, and CFMOTO was conscious of that, rather than just continuing to pump in products that people didn't actually want. Another interesting point is that CFMOTO actually has poached some talent from the big manufacturers like Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki, and KTM. KTM is probably the most significant and notable of the partnerships, as many of their design engineers come from Kiska, their design overlords, and many of them have stepped in to help CFMOTO design their bikes, which is why you'll see some similarities drawn between the two, and that's very intentional. When you hire experienced talent like this, you immediately accelerate your drive to acquire legitimacy. The bottom line is, they're not here to sell you another budget motorcycle. They want you to take them seriously. But we'll talk more about how this bike feels on the test ride segment. But for right now, I want to talk to you about some specs. So let's start at the front. Please come in a little bit closer. The front rotor on this motorcycle is a 320mm disc using a J. Juan, I believe that is a Spanish subsidiary of Brembo. It is a 4-piston radial caliper. Out back, you'll kind of find the standard 220mm disc with a single piston caliper. The front suspension on our 450 NK is a 37mm fork. It's not adjustable, but it is inverted, which does give it an overall better aesthetic, and many will point to better unsprung mass. But on a bike like this, that's kind of budget-oriented, I don't think that should be very high on the priority list, so I would just give it some style points more than anything. Rear suspension is a single monoshock with a preload adjust, so you can accommodate whenever you throw a passenger on the rear to help it not squat so much. Now for the more exciting stuff, our engine is a 2-cylinder using a 270-degree crank. It's 449 cc's in displacement, makes a claimed 50 horsepower at 9,500 RPM, and 28.8 pound-foot of torque at 7,600 RPM. This engine is paired to this 6-speed transmission, which features an assist and slipper clutch. That helps you have a lighter feel at the clutch lever while also helping you with your downshifts and ensuring they are smooth without too much wheel hop. Note, not a rider replacement for proper downshifting technique, just a rider assist. I measure in at 6'1", I'm 190 pounds. The seat height on the 450 NK measures in at 31.3 inches. This is not the lowest seat height in the class, but it's still very approachable for most riders, and it's narrow enough that a reach to the ground is pretty easy. What I'm quite fond of on this motorcycle is the seat to peg distance. I feel like this is a very neutral stance. The 450 NK tips the scales at 364 pounds wet and ready to ride. Getting on the motorcycle is mostly the easy part. Once you're moving, all of the weight kind of melts away, and you're stuck with what you're wondering, how far can I ride this beast? The tank is about 3.7 gallons. Estimated averages are between 50 and 60 miles per gallon, so realistically about 180 to 220 miles of usable range is realistic, but if you push into that 220 range, you risk running the tank completely empty and pushing it to a fuel station. Now that we've talked about the specs, I want to take you guys through some features on the CFMOTO 450 NK. So if you would, come here, we're gonna take you out of your little tray there, and we're gonna do a little bit of walking around this machine to talk about a couple of things. We'll make it pretty brief. ABS is standard equipment on all 450 NKs. They are also equipped with traction control, which I think is a little bit of an odd thing to include on a 50 horsepower motorcycle, but you get this bike for the same price as other bikes in this class. So pretty competitive, not a necessary feature, but maybe gives you a little added confidence. Nearly every video I watch about CFMOTO, small displacement bikes, or even the big ones, they always talk about the little headlight animations they have. I don't think that's anything to be super impressed about. It's a line of code, and these lights just kind of do a little, ooh, fancy. Now, whenever they're done, it's like a frosted finish, so it looks pretty premium. It looks great. LED headlight is definitely bright. I don't know how well it works at night, but you've got your little high beam toggle on the left-hand control box here so that you can get a little, hey, go ahead, buddy, action. As I'm sitting here walking around the bike, this is not part of my script. This looks like it says Adreno HS ass. That's a 5 and that's an S, but it looks like ass. I thought that was funny.
Right.
The buttons on the left-hand instrument cluster are decent. They're not the most premium I've ever felt, and the click is a little vague. I feel like in gloves, or if your hands were cold and you were kind of going numb, you might lose a little bit of feeling in these buttons, but at least you can see what's happening on the full color TFT display. But within this display, it should be noted that this font, this text up here, come on, focus, is incredibly small and hard to read. So if you have bad eyes or need readers, that's a little tough to get along with. Plus the menu has about 1 billion selections inside of it to pick from. Not super crazy about CFMOTO menu layouts. I think that they could definitely do a little better with that, consolidating things and kind of bunching some stuff together. But this is where you can have your overspeed alarm. For those of you who have trouble keeping it under the speed limit, you can also shut off your traction control in this menu as well, along with a couple other things that you can do in there. I do like the kill switch. It is a single piece kill switch, so kill switch on, kill switch off in the run position, and then to start it, you just hit that lower one right there. Here's the hazard switch. Not super crazy about these blinkers, to be honest with you. I think they are a little tacky looking, though they are LED. These just don't scream premium to me like the actual headlight does. I think these are bad, and they look bad. The faux carbon fiber, I think, is also a little tacky. I think I would rather just have a painted piece to match the white or the Zephyr blue that this bike comes in. This is more so or less just like textured plastic. It might fool a couple people, but I know you're fake. I do really like CFMOTO tail sections. I think this is where they absolutely knock it out of the park. They really do a good job with the tail sections and just overall the aesthetic of the machine. It looks very sharp, and that is, again, probably thanks to the Kiska engineers and designers that help motorcycle manufacturers make their motorcycles look, you know, futuristic and edgy and cool. A couple of things that are not stock on this bike: the S&S exhaust, the 450 NK tank pads, and the windscreen up in the front. If you like that stuff and you want to help support the channel, I'll put some links in the description below where you can pick that equipment up. Definitely worth looking into if you want to customize and help support me at the same time. I'm going to take you for a test ride after we listen to the exhaust sound and we thank the guys who make this video possible. Let's do that first. Just so you know, this video is being filmed in one of the warehouses for Big St. Charles Motorsports. That's who I work for, and that's who I get to go through to do these types of review test ride videos. So please watch this ad, please go check out their website, and if you want to buy something, why not buy it from the biggest dealer in the Midwest with the best pricing around?
They got Kawasaki, Suzuki, and KTM too.
Whether off-road or on, they're built for you. From youth dirt bikes to the big 1000cc, at Big St. Charles there's something for every family. Race fuel burning with oil on the side, local delivery, they'll bring you a ride. We got 2 strokes and 4 strokes ready to roll. Parts, service, and sales, they'll feed your soul. Calendar girls and bike nights under the stars. Big St. Charles, where you're taking charge. At Big St. Charles, they treat you right. 2,000 bikes ready under the showroom light. Financing's easy, whether it's big or small. 636-946-6487. Give them a call. Big St. Charles, where the road begins. Hop on that saddle, rev up that D-twin.
Thank you for watching that. Now, I'd like to let you all listen to the sound of this sweet, sweet S&S exhaust on this 450 NK, so let's flip it to that. Alright, so as we gear up for our test ride here in the Big St. Charles Motorsports Complex, unfortunately today we will not be having any 360 footage because I forgot to charge my Insta360 X3, so we are just stuck with the GoPro footage today. We're trying a new setup with stabilization off for a more authentic feel and also enhancing our field of view by about 10%. So the first thing we're going to do is get some heat worked in to our machine. This bike is still mostly new. I think it only has 27 miles on it. I don't know why the previous owner traded it in, but that's something that we see a lot here at this dealership, where people come and trade in their CFMOTOs with very low mileage and then they end up buying a Japanese product. Quite a bit of ABS interference, I might add. Let's see how quickly we can get our little CFMOTO 450 NK stopped. Let's mark this green line right here coming the opposite direction. Let's go from 30 miles per hour and see how quickly we can get it stopped. I'm expecting anywhere between 2.5 to 3.5 parking spaces. Let's see. 1, 2 1/4. Pretty good. A lot of ABS interference. I'm not crazy about that. Let's go try it again. Yep. 2.5 spaces. So much ABS interference. Again, not particularly fond of that. But it will help you prevent, locking up, but it almost feels like there's more that the brakes have to offer than what the ABS is leading on. I don't like it. I don't like the ABS on this motorcycle. It's just too much. Low speed is, low speed's okay. The on and off throttle from the Bosch fuel injection is a little weird. We'll talk more about that out on the test ride, see if I can show you guys kind of what I'm talking about. It's always hard to convey feeling through video, so I'll try my very best. For now, let's rip a 2 parking spot test and see how the 450 NK fares. All right, from the tippy top, bars locked. Here we go. Pretty decent, actually. 1.5 parking spaces. So a great turning radius out of our little 450 NK. Let's continue moving along and let's get out on the road. Hello, puppy. Yeah, I know, you're so mad. How dare I? Quick little run up to 60 miles per hour. Not too bad, not too bad. Let's go for the mirrors first, since we're thinking about them at this exact moment. Done pretty well. Little 2-cylinder motor. Can't balance it perfectly. Little bit of vibration, but they are fit and finished very well with a nice rigid perch. They look good. They match the aesthetic of the machine. Overall, 80% usability when viewing through the mirrors, looking behind myself. Good mirrors. This S&S exhaust sounds great. Once more, if you want this exhaust, there will be a link in the description below where you can pick one up for yourself. I think it's a slip-on, so pretty cost effective. I rode a lot of the original CFMOTOs from the 300 NK to the 300 SS, the 650 Adventura, and the 650 NK. 2 of those 4 motorcycles have been removed from CFMOTO's product offering lineup in the US, those 2 being the 650 NK and the 650 Adventura. Both just a little bit underpowered and overweight for the American market. Compared to Japanese offerings, those bikes were behind the times by probably 10 years, in my opinion. At least that's how they felt. I was never fond of them. I didn't appreciate them, and I even voiced my opinion on that during my original reviews. But I think that CFMOTO since then has come a long way, and they still have some great offerings available by today's standards, and they've really kind of enhanced their lineup with more European and Japanese traditional sport motorcycles. Their big adventure bike, the flagship I'll call it, the Ibex 800, is based on the KTM LC8C compact 790cc engine, making a little over 100 horse on some of the KTMs, and I think making about 95 horse on the CFMOTO side. They now have their 675 lineup, which features the SS, the Super Sport class, and the NK. People seem to be getting along with those fairly well. They feature a 3-cylinder motor making 95 horsepower, a great product offering at banging value of under $8,000, I think. They're supposedly coming out with a new 1000cc, which I think will be incredibly interesting as we wade our way into those waters and we see what China can do with a 1000cc machine compared to a Japanese product. I think the critiquing of CFMOTO up to this point hasn't really been entirely fair, and is mostly based around echo chambers based on previous Chinese products that I've talked about in the beginning of this video, Chondas, aka Chinese Hondas, that were basically just knockoffs and circumnavigated engine patents and whatnot, using old designs and putting them in their own machines. Something like an SSR or an Apollo, or basically any variety of Chinese motorcycle that you see on Amazon or some of these other YouTubers reviewing. They're basically just Honda engines made with high-grade Chinesium alloy. CFMOTO, to me, has broken that negative stigma of copycat Chinese motorcycles that may look good on the surface and sound good on the surface, but ultimately fall short of consumer expectations based on what Japanese and European offerings bring out. Our 450 NK, I think, is a great example of a bike that delivers on the value that it presents and posts itself up with along competitive models like Kawasaki's Z400, Yamaha's MT-03, KTM's Duke 390, Aprilia's 200-457. This bike has competitive power. It's feature rich, though the features could be handled a little bit better, like the ABS and the small font on the display, just 2 small items that come to mind. I don't much care for how they finish and fit them. Ooh, what the f was that? That didn't feel good. Don't know what that was. I don't care much for how they, I don't know, complete the package with their offerings and promises like that TFT display. I think they're just kind of okay. But then again, the bike doesn't really overpromise anything with its price tag, so maybe it's par and I'm being too harsh, maybe too cynical. Thanks, guy. But I think our torquey little parallel twin more than makes up for anywhere else where it may fall short. Because truly, it doesn't fall that short of consumer expectations when comparing to those other models. And for the asking price of just $53.99, you get a lot of value built into this. If you want the equivalent from, let's say, Kawasaki Z400, which I think is the closest comparison to this machine based on power, weight, and other features, their SE model comes for $63.99. That machine does feature integrated frame sliders, a little bit of a windscreen, a TFT display, LED lights, basically everything the 450 NK has for a premium price. And the warranty is half that of the 450 NK, which is another huge incentive to opt for a CFMOTO, is the length of warranty. Now, there should be a little asterisk mentioned right here, because I have heard that the CFMOTO warranties are a little bit tricky to deal with because of long wait times with back-ordered products. Since everything is manufactured in China on these motorcycles, that is one drawback. But it's a pretty mixed bag of reviews. Some people say it's phenomenal. I've heard other people say it's not so great. And of course, it's a case-by-case basis, and the people that are having a less than ideal experience often voice their scrutinization and opinions the loudest, while the people who are having a great time and good service and are back on the road are far too busy enjoying their machine to write negative things online about the bike that they're riding. Hold on, I have to interrupt that part of the video for this. Because I had someone who said this bike couldn't do 110 miles per hour, but I'm out to prove them wrong, so let's prove some people wrong. We did it. We did it. We did it. Oh. Highway capability is actually pretty decent, I might add. Holding 75 miles per hour with no problem if I want to make a pass and just open my throttle. We'll ramp it up to 85 real quick. And bam. Yeah, look at that. Pretty decent. And now we are going to get into our 0 to 60 testing, as well as some other possible testing. But really quickly, I want to show you this little on-off throttle problem. I don't know, something doesn't feel right with that 0 to 5% range of opening the throttle. So if I just slowly roll it open and really ease onto it, we're fine. But if I try to use any sort of haste, it's very like sudden in the way that it delivers a dump of fuel. And I don't know that that's super intuitive to put beginner motorcycles on a bike that behaves in such a manner whenever you're only asking for a little bit of power and it gives you suddenly that much power. I hope that's being conveyed through the camera. It is worth noting, and it's something that I want to stress to those of you considering this machine, because it's something you should be aware of. And a lot of you may say, oh, that's the throttle cable, you can adjust the throttle cable. That's not the throttle cable, Bromigo, because I can slowly get it to add fuel if I'm polite to it. You know, if I'm like very mindful of how much throttle I'm adding. Yeah, I can work it out. So it's not the throttle cable slack, you know, this little bit of play right here. It's not that. It's the fuel table and the fuel injection sending unit and everything working together all on its own from Bosch that's causing that. Now, I think there could be some ECU flash services or ECU tuning services in the future where we could possibly work a lot of that stuff out. But for right now, the stock fueling is a little rough. But we're not here to talk about fueling. Before we get started, I need to get into my main menu settings, and I need to go down to my traction control, and we're going to shut that off. So that way the bike doesn't try to inhibit our ability to get a good drive out of the hole, not worrying about lifting the front wheel or anything like that. CFMOTO 450 NK 0 to 60 test in 3, 2, 1, go. 60. Fairly quick, but I got a little jumpy off the line. Let's see if I can go back and smooth that out and do a little bit better. CFMOTO 450 NK 0 to 60 test, take 2. 3, 2, 1, go. 60. That was a little better. It felt better. So those two tests went pretty well. I do want to test and see if the CFMOTO 450 NK can wheelie. So let's check that real quick. First gear, hit. Not bad. Second gear, try a clutch up. Not bad. Let's see if we can get one more good one out of her. And then we'll get out of here. Yeah, man, not bad. CFMOTO 450 NK, pretty decent. Did you know that you can shift almost any motorcycle without pulling the clutch in also? You can upshift and downshift. This is not a quick shift, nor is it a quick shifter, but if you would like to practice clutchless shifting techniques, it's very quick on upshift. You're going to be on the gas, off the gas, and then shift like this. Bang, bang, bang. And then to clutchless downshift, you have to reverse this process, and you're going to blip your throttle and click up on the shifter at the same time like this. A quick shifter basically works the same way. You're just mechanically doing the shifting for your machine yourself. Anyhow, moving back to the main topic here, I think the CFMOTO 450 NK is a fantastic, fun little machine. I think the value is there. I think if you don't want to pay the premiums that Japanese manufacturers ask for a more basic machine, then you should definitely be considering one of these, but you should also look at the big picture of reliability concerns and serviceability concerns. And this is maybe a little mushy-gushy and political of me to say, but I don't think it's fair to not buy Chinese products because of the Chinese labor. I know that it's probably going to get bought anyway, and there'll probably be some good counterpoints in the comments, but we shouldn't punish the people of China for being born into a society where things are the way they are, and the government mostly has their hand in everything. It's an unfortunate reality, so I don't particularly love the idea of boycotting Chinese products because it's, I don't know, it's not really the Chinese government that I think you're hurting, it's the Chinese people. And I can't remember, there was another motorcycle YouTuber that brought this up. If I can remember who it is, I'll put them on the screen. But I think I kind of agree with him in that we can't really punish the people of the country for its government's mistakes. It's no different than the US. Our government isn't awesome. Regardless of where you stand politically, I think we can agree that there's a lot of bad things happening. And that's where I go with the CFMOTO issue. American consumers are biased against Chinese products, and truly, maybe there's some justification behind it. And if we stop buying Chinese, well, then maybe the government will collapse. But I don't see a world where that happens. And the device that you're watching this on was likely made in China. So before you go running to the comments and trying to point the finger at me saying I'm the problem, what you're typing on was probably made or manufactured or sourced parts from China. And I don't really have a solution or anything to say to remedy the situation other than that's just how it is. So if these bikes are going to be available, we might as well buy them. If the value is there and you like it, you shouldn't buy what someone else tells you to buy. And you certainly shouldn't buy a Chinese motorcycle because it's what someone tells you to buy. You should buy a Chinese motorcycle because you want the Chinese motorcycle and you like all the features that it has, and you like the way it looks, and you like the way it sounds. So here's the thing with the 450 NK. If you're looking for a lightweight, stylish, cost-effective, and feature-rich bantamweight motorcycle, this bike makes a very strong case for itself. The little twin-cylinder cross-plane motor has plenty of character and energy that feels different enough that it's not like every other parallel twin out there with a flat-plane 180 crank like a CB500F, Z400, or anything from the Japanese variety that runs that style of engine. And appearance-wise and everything that comes with it, you would almost think that this bike maybe should cost more than it does. But that's just not the case. CFMOTO is delivering value at affordable prices. The fuel range is decent, the componentry is solid, everything about the bike is just pretty well done. Passenger accommodations are okay, it's fast enough to do some kind of commuting around town and maybe take an hour-long road trip. And even though it is a budget bike, I don't think that it necessarily screams budget bike. So for all of those reasons, I'd probably call it a good buy. But the flip side is important, and it should be noted that the 450 NK is not perfect. My biggest gripe is the fueling. That twitchy on and off throttle responsiveness, it's going to make low speed and traffic riding a lot more challenging for newer riders who aren't ready for that sudden burst of throttle to be added to their machine whenever they're only asking for a little bit, or at least trying to find the zone that is right for what they're doing. I never really got to push the suspension, but I imagine that it's made like every other bantamweight budget bike suspension, where it feels okay, it's good for street use, it's kind of soft though, so if you start pushing it, it'll really start showing its true colors. So bottom line, if you're used to a more refined and familiar face, something of European or Japanese variety, maybe for right now, you shouldn't dive into an NK yet, but if you're ready for a new flavor, then sure, tackle one. However, if you just aren't ready to dive into something that's unfamiliar territory yet, for right now, you should say goodbye. Either way, I think that motorcycles like this from CFMOTO prove one thing, and that's that they've evolved, and they're not here to really blend in anymore, but set new standards, challenge the industry, and change what we know to be great value motorcycles. But that's going to wrap up this portion of the video, so I'm going to chuck it to myself in the outro. Let's head over there. All right, that's the full kit and caboodle on the 450 NK from CFMOTO. If you stuck around this long to the end of the video, thank you so much. It's because of people like you that I can continue making this content and bringing you reviews that you actually care about. If you're interested in making content like this or doing something similar to what I do, I've put some affiliate links in the description below where you can find a bunch of my gear and equipment that I use to make these reviews, along with a couple accessories for this motorcycle. You don't have to buy anything, but every time that you do, a little bit gets put back into this channel to help make it better for you, the viewer. If you have no desire for two wheels or anything involving two wheels, but you like watching my content because it's entertaining or informative, you can donate directly to me using that YouTube Super Thanks feature. Not required, but again, every little bit helps. And as we get into the Midwest winter, this will probably be the last review video that I do for this season. Kind of crazy to think that we've been going for almost 5 years now. I would ask what content you might like to see, but every time I do that, people tell me what they want to see, and then I ignore them and make stuff that only I care about. So that's probably what'll happen again. I will likely do a couple of commentary style videos where I talk about things that interest me in the world of two wheels, or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just continue making edits on my gaming channel. That's Omni Games, if you want to go check that out. Bunch of great edits, memes, and funny moments over there with me and the gang. But if there's something that you genuinely want to see, maybe I'll consider it. Put it in the comments below. And if you've really enjoyed this content and found something useful out of it, whether it was entertaining, informative, or helped you make a decision, you can leave a like on this video, which is going to be tremendously helpful for getting it out to other viewers who have similar interests to you that might be in the same situation. If you want to see more of this content in the future, you can hit that subscribe button for my channel. This way you stay up to date whenever I upload and you don't miss a video. That should wrap this up. I want to say thank you again for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful week. Please, ride safe.